play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I am Jimmy Murphy. I will be joined by my co-host Pierre McGuire shortly, probably around 4:20 Eastern. So in just under 15 minutes, Pierre has been working nonstop at CBS headquarters today in Fort Lauderdale, getting ready for the Stanley Cup final, doing some hits for them, and also has his Tuesday hit right now with Pittsburgh Radio and Mark Madden there. But I am here so we can start to talk and we can start to get into previewing this 2025 Stanley Cup final between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to drop the puck. This has been a long wait. And look, I'm not going to knock. I know everybody out there is criticizing the NHL, criticizing TV and all that. I'm not going to blame anybody right now. You know what? When it comes down to it, it's just the way the series went. It's arena availability. It's just, it is what it is. So we can't change it. So there's no need to blame anyone, but I'm not going to lie. I need some hockey. I'm going stir crazy here. I'm losing my mind. All right. And, thank God I'm a single man, because I'd be driving my significant other nuts right now as I wait for them to drop the puck there in Edmonton for game 1. What I do got is I promised, though. Okay. And I don't know if I should have tipped our producer staff up there in Montreal off right now. I've got my picks, and I've got some picks for the series, and I got picks for game 1. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to give you the picks for the series, and then I'll tee up game 1 tomorrow. So if you don't mind, back there at the Sick Media Podcast studio right now, let's pull our Betway logo up right now, because we'll go to them right now, and we'll do our sick pick of the night a little earlier there. So pull that right up there. And if you want, as I always tell you every day, you can go to Betway still. And it looks like they're just going to put this right down until the final siren on the season goes. And the Edmonton Oilers or the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup. So you can still go to Betway right now. And if you're a new member, you sign up for a membership there, right there with the QR code in front of you. Or if you're just listening, go to the details section and create your member account there. Their welcome offer of up to $200 credit on your first bet, regardless of whether you win or lose, is still there. And it will last straight through to the final siren, like I said. So you want to go there right now, sign up for your account. Remember, you got to be 18 plus. It's not available. This special is not available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply, and always bet responsibly. Let's go to my sick series picks of the night here. What do we got?
It's time for Sick Picks, brought to you by Betway.
All right, I see some questions there, and if Pierre isn't on by the time I'm done with this, which I think we'll still have a little time, I'll get to some questions for you guys. But all right, here we go for the series, and what I'll do tomorrow, too, is I'm going to send a copy of this to the folks at Sick Media, and we'll put a little graphic up tomorrow along with the game picks. We'll do it all nice right there for you in case you missed it today. But here's my series picks. All right. First of all, in terms of who's going to win the series, I like the Edmonton Oilers to win the series. They're slight favorites at -120, so Edmonton to win the series at -120. I also like the series to go 7 games. And if you pick the Oilers, obviously I'm doing that if I just pick the Oilers to win the series. If you pick the Oilers to win in 7, you get plus 550 value. All right, so far that's Oilers to win the series at -120. Oilers in 7 at plus 550. All right, now we'll get into some of the fun props here. I think there's going to be some hat tricks in this series. In fact, I think there might be more than one, but I couldn't find that option on Betway. I apologize if it's there to Betway and I just didn't see it. But what you can get right now is over 0.5 hat trick in the series, which means there has to be at least one hat trick in the series if you bet this for you to win the bet. That is at plus 340. So betting a hat trick to occur in the series. They don't let you say who's going to get it or what team. You just can bet whether it's going to happen or not. I say it will. Okay. In terms of, you can pick this thing where you pick a game, who wins game 1, who wins game 2, game 3, and so on, and then match it up with who wins the series. So I'm doing, as I said already, Oilers in game 1, they win, and I think they win the series. So when you combine those for a two-leg parlay, it's plus 183 value. So pretty good value there. Oilers win game 1 and win the series at plus 183. And of course, as Pierre and I have already agreed numerous times here, this game is imperative for the Oilers. This is like, I know it's a 7-game series, but this is a must-win for the Oilers. If they lose this game, well, then I'm going to count on my bet and say the Panthers are going to win the series. That's how important I think game 1 is tonight. So huge game for them. Oilers win game 1, win series plus 183. Also, in terms of a player prop, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has quietly had himself a really good playoff so far. Obviously he gets overshadowed by McDavid and Draisaitl, but he's been consistent. He's helped his team a ton. I like him to lead the series in points. Yes, you're probably looking at me like, man, Jimmy, is that they got the funny stuff floating around Boston there that you're smoking or what? No, I really do, because I look at it like Florida's going to just totally focus in on Draisaitl and McDavid, which means other guys are going to be left open and other guys are going to get less attention. And I think Nuge continues to succeed in the playoffs here. And I like him to lead the series in points. I don't know how many. They don't even give you an option to pick. But if he does lead the series in points and you pick that, you're getting plus 1,700 value. So if you bet $100, you're winning 1,700. So Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to lead the series in points at 1,700, plus 1,700, that is. So those are my series bets. Yes, Tim, I know. You probably think I'm high. I am not. I promise you. I'm just really confident about Nugent-Hopkins. I think he's been an under-the-radar player throughout the playoffs, and I think he's going to come out there and be a major factor in this series. I also keep an eye on Evander Kane in terms of goals. I think he could, I don't know if he'll lead into goals, but he's a good goal prop guy game by game. So I will give you, speaking of games, individual games, we will get into game one tomorrow in our normal time slot when we do the picks around like 4:30 Eastern. After we interview our guest tomorrow, who will be a defenseman, a former Panthers and Canucks defenseman, Ed Jovanowski, will be joining us on the eye test tomorrow. He was on that 1996 squad that lost to the Colorado Avalanche way back when in 1996. Yes, I remember it well because I am old. But he will be joining us tomorrow. So after that, I'll get to my game picks there. Yeah, I see there's a couple questions lining up. So let's line up. Let's do some questions before we get Pierre on. What do we got? Chad Laidlaw. Jimmy, what would realistically be a successful 25-26 season for the Boston Bruins? Just to make the playoffs, because I think they're going to be borderline again. I think they're going to be a little better than they were this year, but I just think the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference as a whole could be better. There's teams that didn't make it that I think will make it. I think that whole, if we were going in a 1-8 format, I think the Bruins are in sort of that 7 to 10 to 11 seeded, you know what I mean? Just pressing for a spot at the end, trying to get those points and get in and sneak in. They'll be in that mix, but I'm not sure they make it. But even if they're in that mix, I think that's a successful season after the disaster that this was this past season. All right, what do we got? Alex Ivanowski, what are your thoughts on the Kevin Adams article written in The Athletic? Honestly, I've been someone who has been more than on the believer side of Buffalo, but I'm starting to question that. Alex, I did not see the article. I will check it out, and I will get back to you on my thoughts on that tomorrow. I apologize. Just, speaking in general of what I think of Kevin Adams, I don't necessarily I don't think he's done a great job. I think he has a lot to do with what's gone on there. But at the same time, I think more blame should be cast on ownership, because I think, as Pierre and I have discussed, until now, when they hired Yarmo last week and Eric Stahl as senior advisors, until now, the Pagulas had refused to have a conduit between the owner and the general manager and a hockey operations guy, somebody for the general manager, for Kevin Adams to bounce ideas off. They refused to do it. I was told that Adams actually wanted one, and he was told no previously. I don't know what changed their mind this year, but they allowed him to do it, and I think it's going to help him and the team a lot. So I'll read that article. I'm interested in it. Thanks for tipping me off on it. But just in general, that's my opinion. I don't think he's been a great GM, but I don't think he's been as bad. I think there's a lot of shared blame going on in Buffalo, and it trickles all the way down to the ice with the players too. There's been a lot of underachievers there. So that's where I'll leave that. All right, next question. We got Pierre too. So this will be the last one right before I bring Pierre on. Daryl, Bruins head coaching update. And the reason I took the question is because I don't have one. All I know is Joe Sacco, as we said yesterday and was reported first by Elliot Friedman, has been told that he is not in the mix anymore. Whether or not he is going to be an assistant coach is still up in the air. Elliot Friedman had speculated that he might end up in Toronto in an assistant capacity. So we'll see what happens there, but he will not be back as head coach of the Boston Bruins. By all accounts, Elliot reported, I'm hearing the same thing from my sources that have been feeding me throughout this process. It appears to be down to Marco Sturm and Jay Woodcroft, but I just wonder if this has taken so long. Did a coach that became available in the last few days, or let's say all the way back to like Friday, since then, has that changed anything? I don't know. That's just me wondering. We'll see. But I think if we don't hear anything by the end of the week, then I think the answer to that question is maybe yes. I think maybe something got thrown in a mix they weren't planning on, and they had to explore that as well. So we'll see, but that's purely speculation. None of that's confirmed. Just want to make that clear. We're going to bring Pierre in, or is he having some issues getting in? I think he might be having some issues. We'll get him in soon. He's going to be audio because he's driving back from Fort Lauderdale from the studio there. Let's take one more question while we got him working to get on here. Randy Workman, do the Stars trade Robinson? Randy, there's a lot of smoke around that right now because they're going to have to do some maneuvering. I think they want to maybe bring in somebody new, maybe sort of change the dynamic of the team a bit. Because look, I mean, this team's had a great run. This core's had a great run, but they keep hitting that wall and they can't get past it. And you know the definition of insanity. So I think that they maybe want to change the dynamics or the makeup of the team a bit. And in order to do that, maybe some guys get shuffled out. I honestly, my gut feeling is I'd be surprised if Jamie Benn's back. That's one thing I'll tell you, just based on some conversations I've had and just my gut. I seriously would be surprised if he's back because if what I'm saying is true, that they want to change the dynamics a bit, he's been a big part of that. And not to say that he did a bad job, but if you're going to change things, as we saw with Boston with the makeover they did at the deadline, then you really got to take out some longtime pieces in the core and reshuffle a bit. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, let's see if we got Pierre? We do. Let's bring Pierre McGuire on. He's been a busy man today. And he is on via audio. Unfortunately, we don't get to see his handsome face. But Pierre, how are you, my friend? Or do we have him? I cannot hear him. So we will work on that. I apologize. Let's do another question while we wait. Renaissance Resistant. What's up, my friend? Is Logan Mailloux on the block? Okay, here's what I'm going to say about that. I'm not like, I can't confirm whether he's on the block or not. What I can confirm is what you're seeing, Renaissance Resistant, what we've all been seeing. His name is getting thrown around big time into like trade rumors right now. Like everywhere I look, every time I turn on our good friend Tony Marinaro's show on the Sick Podcast Network, you hear his name being bantered about and potential trade rumors. Every time I throw on like TSN, 690 in Montreal, I hear it, or if I'm watching national shows, his name is out there that way, which, usually if that's the case, there's a reason it's out there. But then again, it could be just speculation. So I'm not at liberty to confirm whether he is technically available or not. But I think when it comes down to the Canadians' top prospects, in all their draft picks, I mean, I don't know if we're going to say, let's just, Demidov and Lane Hudson are untouchable. We agree on that. But in terms of people who spent the majority of the season in the AHL, I think that a lot of those guys are in play for the right deal. Like if somebody comes along and they knock the socks off of, Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton in a trade offer, you got to do it, right? Because the Canadians do want to take that next step and add a veteran player that can be impactful into the lineup. And to do that, you're probably going to have to sacrifice one of your top prospects and or a first round pick, I would imagine. So, his name's out there. Let's put it that way. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, who do you think is most against the Bruins doing a full rebuild, management or ownership, if you had a guess? I'd say it's a little bit of both, but then again, you can kind of consider Cam Neely as an extension of ownership, right? When we were just talking about Buffalo, right? When you have one of those president of hockey operations, they're kind of, a direct line from ownership to the GM and vice versa. So I think he's leaning towards it a bit, and just knowing Cam Neely, what a competitor he is, and he always wants to win. And you've seen the highlights of him during playoff games when he's up in the management box and he's, doing a stump pump, throwing stuff when he's mad. The guy's a competitor, man, and he always will be. And that's what was so great about him as a player. And that's why he's a Hall of Famer. So I think it's it's probably hard for Don Sweeney to come to him, A, and say, Cam, we got to tear it down, or B, or both maybe, and or B, go to ownership, who is notorious for wanting that first round playoff ticket gate. They don't care if they go past that. As long as they get that first one, that's their profit right there. And that's how they look at it. Of course, they're going to want their team to go far and win a championship. It helps everybody and the fans are happy, whatever. But as long as they get that first round, that's why you always see the Bruins forever before this run started, you know, from when they won the cup in 11. But I mean, back to when I was a kid, you'd always see them, you know, they'd always be just good or just bad enough not to win. You know, like they never just sort of took it to the next level, and they could never accept doing a rebuild. It was really hard for them. I mean, how many times have the Bruins really gone into a full rebuild, right? Even when they got Joe Thornton, when they drafted him first overall in 1997, they were back in the playoffs that year. In 97, 98, they made the playoffs. So it's like, let me double check. Either that or maybe it was the next year. But all I'm saying is they don't have much patience for a rebuild. So their idea of a rebuild is maybe 1 to 2 years max, as long as Jacobs is the owner. I do think that Don Sweeney, even though it might mean his job, I think is a really smart hockey guy. I think he knows, like, I think he really understands that that's what they need. And I think a lot of you do too, you know, and I think he's in a pickle there, right? Because you look at it from his point of view. If I just say, okay, tear it down and we stink and that's it, I'm probably not going to be here much longer if I'm Don Sweeney. But, you know, I think he deserves a hand. I think he deserves a big pat on the back and a lot of respect that he put the team before himself, because I think that's what they need. And I have been going back to the coaching search. As far as I can tell, they poked around on some of the big names, but I think the plan all along was to go into that second and third tier of coaches, preferably a coach that's younger, can grow with a young team. So I do think there is that appetite with Don Sweeney, but definitely not with Cam Neely or the Jacobs. It looks like, unfortunately, we're not going to get my buddy Pierre McGuire here. My great co-host will not be joining us today, but he will be back tomorrow for sure to join us and interview Ed Jovanowski and then take your questions as well. So here's what we'll do. Fire the questions away. Keep them coming. We'll just roll with that. And if I see anything break in, I know right now we are going, because it's 4:24 p.m. Eastern where I am, Mountain Time where they are in Edmonton for the Stanley Cup Final Media Day. It's only 2:00 there. That's been underway, I believe, since 11:30 or noon their time. So they're still in the midst of it. We're going head-to-head. So if you guys see it, tell me in the message room. I'll keep an eye as well if any breaking news comes. I did see that Connor Brown was not on the ice, but they are expecting him to play in game one. Connor McDavid was back on the ice. He's a go no matter what. So let's do the questions. Let's fire away. What do we got? Kevin McClafferty. Hey guys. Sorry, Kev, just me today. From a team building perspective, is it all an issue having the first overall pick and that pick be a defenseman over, say, a center in today's NHL? Asking for the Islanders and Schaefer. I think I know where you're going with this, Kev. Kind of thinking about maybe the hometown kid. You want the Islanders to maybe take him, as a lot of people on Long Island are pushing them to do, and take Higgins. I don't think, and I think Pierre would agree with me on this, and I think he might already be on record here or on Mitch's show in Montreal. I don't think you can justify taking Higgins at number one. I actually think there's some players that are better than Higgins that are centers. I don't think you can justify taking him at number one. I think the only reason to be doing that is a PR move. And when you have the number one pick in the draft and you have a surefire backbone defenseman like that, and Matthew Schaefer, you take him. Now, does that mean you can't draft him and turn around and trade him? And then, you know, use another pick to get Higgins. And then on top of that, maybe you get some pro bodies, or you get a couple other first round, and maybe you get a 2026 first rounder. Like I said yesterday, that's what I would be looking to do if I'm the Islanders. And I know Pierre thinks I'm nuts because it's a huge chance to take, but that's how much I want Gavin McKenna if I'm a GM. So I don't know. Like, I think if you are drafting at number one, and I'm Matthew Darsh, and number one gets called and it's still my pick, I'm taking Schaefer. What do I do with him after that? Well, let's see what's out there to do. But if you're thinking about trading him so you can then justify drafting Hagans where you draft him, that's good. But I'm telling you, you do not want to take Hagans at number one. That's no knock on him. He is just not the caliber of player in my eyes and in the eyes of a lot of scouts I've talked to that Hagans is at this point. That could all change. Obviously, Hagans can go on and become a superstar. I'm just telling you, based on the research I've done, you take Schaefer right now. All right, next question. Juice _031-017. This is for Jimmy. Well, that's good because nobody else here. How good a leader was Patrice Bergeron throughout his entire career with the Bruins? Oh, Juice, I've got so many awesome Patrice Bergeron stories. Some probably he's just such a humble guy. I know he wouldn't want me to say. But I mean, we all know the story about Patrice and what he went through in 2013 in that 6-game series loss in Stanley Cup final in Chicago Blackhawks. Okay. He played game 6 with a punctured lung, a dislocated shoulder, and broken ribs. And God knows what else. That's all that was revealed. So I'll tell you this story. And I think I might have told this last year on the podcast here, but I just want you to know how tough this guy was and what a leader he was. So you lose Stanley Cup final. You already proved yourself by playing with those injuries, right? And toughing it out and doing everything you could to push to a game 7 for your team. I don't think that the media would have minded if he didn't face us or didn't face us right away, right? Because he's usually one of the first ones. That's just who he is. He faces the music, win or lose, and he's always one of the first ones out there. Sometimes he was on regular season games. I mean, obviously, Stanley Cup final, you can't really escape. But on regular season games, some players just wouldn't even come out. But Patrice always came out. So he gets down there. I was told to get down in the locker room early. I wasn't writing a gamer for that story. At the time, I was with ESPN Boston working with Joe McDonald. And so I get down there and the locker room's open and it's empty. There's no line yet. And like, I'm just letting you know, when it's a Stanley Cup final, the line to get to the locker room is down the hallway and around another hallway. I know you guys have probably never been in the bowels of TD Garden where the dressing rooms are, but it's pretty long usually because you've got media from all over the world. Right. And so I'm like, wow, this is great. If nobody says anything to me until I'm told to leave, I'm going in. So I went in the locker room. I got right over to Patrice's stall and waited about 5 minutes. And I see Patrice come in. He's limping. He can hardly stand up. He's walking really slow. He just looks obviously so dejected. And he looks at me. He goes, Murph, good thing you're here. I need some help. And I had to help him get to his stall. And then he said, listen, there might come a time when everybody gets here. Can you just stay there in case I start to fall over and I can't keep myself up? That's how much pain this guy was playing through. And he stood there and he took question after question. Thankfully, he didn't fall onto me and I didn't have to hold him up. But I will never forget that as long as I live. That's how tough Patrice Bergeron is. I hope that conveyed it to you. Like I said, I've got other stories that I can't necessarily tell, but he's probably, if not the top, and I'm saying he's right there with Chara. He's probably tied with Chara of the toughest players I've ever covered on a daily basis. All right, next question. All right, Alex Evanowski. If the Canadians take a step back next year, do you think ownership and the fan base will freak out and cause pressure to be put on Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes? Not a Canadians fan, but I hope not. Keep building. Alex, sadly, I think your worry is warranted. Did we not see that around Christmas time before they went on that run after the holiday break that got them into playoff contention and made them realize that they could make a run for the playoffs? If I recall, there were a lot of fans, even some of our viewers here, starting to say, well, maybe the plan's not working. Maybe we got to look at something different here. A lot of people were talking about Marty St. Louis and his job status. So yes, unfortunately, in the greatest hockey market in the world, along with that amazing unbridled passion, also comes irrational thinking, right? That's the way it is. I understand it. I'm not knocking them for that. I'm just telling the truth. So yes, I think if they get off to a bad start, you'll start to hear that stuff in the media amongst the fan base. All right, next question. Kenneth Boudreau. Hey, fellas, any chatter of Schaefer potentially getting an NHL deal for next year with whatever team drafts him? Thank you. Kenneth, I think it really depends on who the team is. If it's the Islanders, I mean, if he goes into camp and knocks their socks off, and says, look at me, I'm ready. Why not bring him in as a sixth? Why not give him at least a little tryout there to see, what is it, 20 games? Like, just let him show what he's got. I don't see any harm in that. Also depends what happens with the Islanders blue line, right? In the offseason, a lot of rumors flying around Dobson. There's some other changes that could happen. So there might be a slot for him to slide into if he earns it. So I don't rule that out at all. And if he goes to another team that's even way behind the Islanders in the rebuild, I'll say like the Chicago Blackhawks, he can move in there. Though I would say, as I said that, I just thought about it, as Pierre and I mentioned before, the bulk of their top prospects are coming on the blue line as of now. So there might be way more competition there in terms of guys trying to break in as rookies. So we'll see what happens, but I don't rule that out at all. I think, hey, give the kid a shot. All right, next question. Juice _031017. Jimmy, what top prospects are the Bruins interested in taking this year's draft? I do not know the firm answers on that. One guy I've been hearing linked to them lately, and we're going to hear a lot this week, obviously, with the combine. We'll see how these guys do in interviews, how they come away from that. I have heard Jake O'Brien, and that's coming from a team source whose job is to scout some players, that he liked them. And he had mentioned him. This was long before the draft, and now he mentioned them again. But I think they do have guys ahead of him. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and do it maybe, I think, isn't there like a 3-day break in the middle of this final series? So maybe in that break, what I'll start to do is I'll start to kind of really dig deep into that. Ask me that question during that break when we don't have any hockey games from the night before to analyze. All right, next question. FFFF. Hey, Jimmy, do you have any idea what Bobby Orr is doing these days? He was an agent. I think he sort of pulled away from that a bit. As far as I know, he's down at his place in Florida until about now. I think he comes north at this time of year. But he's been down there golfing, enjoying life. Sometimes he's at games. Obviously, with the first half of the season, the Bruins were still doing that centennial thing. So he was up here for some events. But I don't know specifically. I just know that he's been down in Florida. All right, next question. Randy Workman. Would you trade? Actually, you know what? I might correct myself on Bobby Orr. I think it might be South Carolina because I'll ask Pierre. I think Pierre told me one time he's there actually, and like Pierre might be close to him where when he moves down south. We'll get to the bottom of it. All right, Randy Workman. Would you trade Dobson to get Hagens? So then you get Hagens and Schaefer? Who you trading him to? That's the question. Like, who's the team that would be in position to get Hagens that you're trading him to? That I don't know if it's all a fit. Yeah, I'd do it because then you get Hagens and Schaefer. I would do that if it all works. If it works out for both sides. All right, next question. Daryl Ingram. Hey, Jimmy, do you see the Bruins not qualifying Johnny Beecher? I think he might get traded. Yeah, I don't think they're going to qualify him, but I think he could get traded. I do. I've talked to some scouts, pro scouts throughout the course of the year who felt like maybe he needs a change of scenery. One of them said his team might be willing to provide that if the Bruins were willing to do it. I don't see him in a Bruins uniform. How that unravels, I'm not sure of the exact path, but I do think he moves on one way or another this offseason. All right, next question. Juice _031017. For Jimmy, would the Bruins have won another Stanley Cup after 2011 had they drafted better in 2015? I have no proof of that. If you're asking just for my opinion, yes, I think they would have. I think, you look at how deep they could have been up the middle with some of the centers they passed on, namely Matthew Barzal. Yeah, I I think it would have got him over the hump, maybe even sooner than when they made it in 2019. So yeah, I think they would have, or they would have been back a lot sooner. Let's put it that way. All right, next question. FFFF. Hey, Pierre and Larry, not sure who Larry is. Would Jamie be a good fit in Montreal? Jamie Benn, that is, if Dallas kept some of his high salary. Larry, he's a UFA, so they don't have to FFF, whatever your name is. You got me confused because you're calling me Larry. He's a UFA, so they don't have to keep anything. That's, it's either the Dallas signs him back or they don't. So I wouldn't go after him from Montreal. There's some other leaders type players, veteran guys at the end of their career that I'd prefer they target. One of them is a guy that's making a comeback right now that won 3 Stanley Cups with the Blackhawks, but I think he's going to end up in Winnipeg probably, and that's Jonathan Taves. All right, next question. Juice_031017. For Jimmy, what was it like covering the Bruins when they played Montreal in the playoffs in 2008, 2009, and 2011, and 2014? Well, I'll tell you, for the first 3, I was covering it from the Bruins perspective, for Nesson, and then for ESPN Boston. And then the last one in 2014, ironically, I was covering the Canadians for NHL.com and TSN.ca. Actually had to write this in a bio for RG Media. We got asked to update our bios this week. So I had to just track my whole career. And I'm like, wow, that was pretty weird. I got to see it from both sides, which was amazing. It's covering the Canadians and Bruins in the playoffs is right there with covering the Bruins winning the Stanley Cup to me. Like that's the Stanley Cup to me. It would be like if I was a baseball reporter and I got to cover the Red Sox Yankees in 03 and 04. It's unreal. Someday I'm going to write a book. I'll have plenty of good stories in there. Not enough time to tell one right now, but maybe in our off-season shows when we're just going on Wednesdays in the summer, I'll tell you a story about crossing the border after Game 6 in Montreal, 2008, going back to Boston for Game 7 the next morning. I had a good story about that. All right, next question. Randy Workman, would you have kept Hamilton, Dougie Hamilton, that is, in 2015? Randy, I actually would have traded him a lot sooner. I was not a big Dougie Hamilton fan. I just think he was too much offense, not enough defense. Just didn't fit in with that team. I don't know why. I don't think it's necessarily him or them, kind of combination of both. It just wasn't a good fit. And I credit Don Sweeney for the haul he got for him in that trade. All right, next question. Joe Segredo, do you think Marner could end up signing with the Stars? That is a very good question, Joe. And you're not the first one to ask me that. And I've heard it some other places. I believe one of the places, just so I give him credit, might have been Matt Marchese, who hosts the hockey show with our good friend Mike Fuda, who was on here last Friday. I think he suggested maybe Marner to Stars. Matt, if it wasn't you, I apologize. I just want to make sure I'm giving credit where it's due. I think they're going to be one of many suitors for him. But man, that would be talk about depth down the wing. Yeah, that would be interesting. But I could see that happening maybe. All right, next question. FFFF, or is it Larry? Hey, Jimmy, I'm just kidding. I'm hearing lots of rumors that Elias Pettersson might be traded to Montreal. Have you heard this? I haven't heard any specific teams. I did during the season. Montreal was not one of them at any time. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's going to be very interesting. The interesting thing to me with Vancouver, and I haven't seen anyone really talk about this, right, is that we were all told that Miller and Pettersson and their feud was the main issue in the dressing room, right? So what do? They trade Miller. So you figure, okay, now we solved that. And it's going to get better because one of them's gone. Pettersson can move on, be himself, find his game again. It never happened, right? So clearly it wasn't just Miller. Clearly both sides were as guilty as the other. But my thing is, okay, so if Pettersson is still part of the problem and the solution there, why would you keep an in-house coach? Why would you promote Foote instead of bringing in another coach? And that makes me wonder, and this is just me speculating, that makes me wonder, is Pettersson's time limited there, right? Because you got to think the coach was part of all that too, right? He got to deal with it. He's not going to, like, unless he thinks that he has a solution to get him back on track, I think he's still out there. I don't know if he starts the season as a Vancouver Canucks. So I think I hear his name a lot. That's definitely a name to watch, I would say, within the next month or so. All right, next question. Renaissance Resistor. Would you package Mayu and both picks? You're talking about the first round picks this year, I believe, for either an established center like McTavish or top draft pick like Misa? I would do it for an established guy, and I think McTavish would be perfect. I would. He's at the right age. He's just coming into his prime. I think he'd be a great pickup for the Canadians. And yes, I would do that as a return. Next question. Rodney Redcliffe. What do you think about trying Arbor Jack guy at forward? Are you thinking like a little, what do you think? Like a kind of Brent Burns type thing, except the reverse? Maybe. Can't hurt. Depends how the lineup shakes out in camp, right? And what happens in the off season, where do all dominoes fall? But if there's a chance to do it, I'd explore it. I mean, and I think, Marty St. Louis is the type of coach that's creative and going to explore anything. So I wouldn't rule that out. Next question. Juice _031017. Which free agents should the Bruins be interested in this offseason? Well, they need center depth. They need a 1C and a 2C, in my opinion. And I don't see much of that on the free agent market. So I'm looking more at like scoring wingers maybe and defensive depth on the free agent market, and then use the trade market to build up the middle. That's what I'd be doing there if I was the Bruins. And that's it. That's all we got. Hey, I'll get out of here a little early. I don't mind, but I do mind because I love doing this with you guys. But I do have to jump into some wonderful traffic here in the Boston area in a bit. So thank you for that. That will give me a little head start if it hasn't already started. Listen, we will have Pierre back tomorrow. I appreciate you guys throwing these questions at me. When I found out I had to fly solo, that's why you guys are the best. And that's why Pierre and I say every day, we love our eye test community. Great questions as always. Again, tomorrow we will have former NHLer, former Florida Panther, who does some broadcasting for them now. Will help us tee up the Stanley Cup final from the Panthers' perspective as they get ready to take on the Edmonton Oilers in Game 1 in Edmonton tomorrow night. And Pierre will be back as well. Big thanks to our awesome crew up in Montreal, the Sick Podcast Network. They did everything they could to get Pierre on. We just had some technical issues. He will be back with me tomorrow. Until then, one more night of rest until hockey, folks. Enjoy your night, and we'll see you back here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.